Welcome to another episode of the Cybertron City Podcast, New York City's premier Transformers fan podcast, where we celebrate all eras of Transformers except his players. I am Paul, one of your co-hosts, alongside Danny. How you doing today, Danny?
How you doing, Paul? Very excited to be here another episode. Let's get started.
Absolutely. Just as a context for people that are just tuning in, this podcast will be published a little bit later on. We're on a little bit of backlog right now, just figuring out some administrative stuff with Spotify and YouTube, but it's all good. Just for some housekeeping, we want to have everyone who's able to do so go on Spotify. If you look at our podcast page with those three little dots at the top, click those, leave a 5-star review for our podcast if you think it's worth it, and any other comments or whatever feedback, keep it constructive, keep it kind, but keep it honest, and we'll work on the feedback for that. If you're listening on YouTube, go ahead, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment below as to what you would think are the fundamentals of collecting, which will be today's topic for our discussion, as well as any other comments, like any other purchases you've had over the last couple of weeks, any cool TF news, maybe your reaction to the new TF1 trailer that's dropping at San Diego Comic-Con. Shout out to San Diego Comic-Con. It's actually the second day of the Comic-Con weekend, and I know Danny, much like myself, is very excited for all the new Transformers reveals and some more news and publicity and press about Transformers 1.
Yes, some more pictures on the SS-86 Prime. Give me more of that.
Definitely. There's a lot to talk about. We'll start with the topic that you've been messaging me a lot about on this week. Transformers 1 now has not only the initial teaser trailer, but a more like in-depth 2-minute long trailer. It's both on Paramount's YouTube channel as well as Hasbro Pulse. I'm sure by now, by the time this podcast is published, everyone will have seen it. Danny, what are your initial thoughts on the Transformers 1 second trailer?
So, piggybacking off the first trailer that came out in April, I wasn't really sold on the story or the movie yet. I thought it was very kiddish and very Cyberverse-esque in nature, but seeing the second one kind of brought me back into like, okay, maybe they do know what they're doing, and the first one was to just get everybody excited for a different take on it.
Valid. I feel that. Similar thoughts here. I thought Chris Hemsworth was an out of left field choice. Like, he wouldn't have been the first person I would have picked to voice Orion Pax. But from what I remember, he studied a little bit or chatted a bit with Peter Cullen just to get the fundamentals of Optimus Prime down. And I feel like he brings that same energy to the character. Like, a lot of the same morals. You can tell it's a younger version of Prime. And the scenes for like the leader he's eventually going to become are there. But he's not quite there yet. He doesn't have that level. I'm not sure if you could call it cynicism, because even though Optimus Prime is like a more, in his name, he's more optimistic. There is, with age, like any seasoned leader or any kind of like military commander, there's a bit of cynicism in there.
And, a bit of grit.
Yeah, exactly. And this is very much not him. He's very. My first impression of those were like, why does it look like it's a Nick Jr. television show? And then I remember it's like Paramount. Like, Paramount owns Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon has Earthspark right now. So I'm like, okay, I get it. But like you, I'm a little bit more positive about how this movie's gonna go. I'm most likely gonna see it. I'll probably have a good time. If there's fans out there that have younger kids they want to introduce to the franchise, I think this will be a great jumping on point. And it's warming up to me in a way, because I'm like, they didn't have to introduce the Quintessons in this too. I don't think that's a big secret at this point. Like, we've seen, or most people that are seeing this podcast see, like, the Quintessons are in toy form now. I think, like, was it the High Priest, Executioner, or something like that is one of the Quintesson characters that'll be in the movie. The one that transforms.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the alt mode looks like a space pine cone. That's the best way that I can think about it. But
it's a little Christmas tree.
Exactly. Welcome Christmas in. Well, when does this movie come out again? September?
I think September 20th.
September 20th. Okay, so it's a good bit of.
It's not too far.
Yeah, not too far out. A little end of summer, beginning of back to school movie, I guess. So that's something positive for the kiddos out there. Shout out to all you younger still stuck in the K through 12 system in America. We feel for you.
Shout out to all those 20 to 30-year-olds too that have something to talk about.
Exactly. Oh my goodness, that for me was so long ago, and yet still not too far away enough.
Well, you're still in that demographic.
Well, you said 20 to 30-year-olds. I'm turning 31 literally in a couple of days, so I'm like far as you can be.
Yeah, you're just about there.
I'm just about there. I'm getting to like I'm not in my young adulthood anymore. It's like proper advanced. Well, not advanced adult. It's my proper adulthood years. I'm in my prime. I'm about to get in my prime. I'm feeling very good about it. But yeah, any other Transformers 1 thoughts that you had before we pivot on to stuff?
Yeah, like you mentioned, like the animation kind of gave that Paramount Kids like Megamind 2 vibe when I first saw it. And I was a bit, I tried not to get hung up on the whole T-Cog thing, and that's what they're after, and that's the MacGuffin of this movie.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're kind of straying from that now, which is what I was much more relieved to see. I didn't want it to be like, let's get our T-Cogs, and this is what makes us special, and, Megatron goes crazy after getting a T-Cog, but, I mean, he still looks like he's going to go crazy, but I like when there's that kid appeal nature to it. Like, okay, you could bring your kid to this, but also there's those undertones of like good story, and that's something that I hope this movie does have.
One thing I wasn't expecting was Steve Buscemi being Starscream. That came out of left field.
Yeah. I don't know, because they have so many voice actors that have kind of just done the roles here and there throughout history. It's kind of like hard to, like, I can't imagine what that casting process is to be like, we're gonna settle on this one, or we're gonna settle on this other actor to play this character, in a big budget movie.
Right.
But like you said too, I mean, it does bring me a bit of relief knowing that Chris Hemsworth went out of his way to like meet with Peter Cullen, get some advice, like how do I respect this character, like how do I go about playing this character in a way that you would feel is the most accurate way, or the most respectable way.
Yeah. The biggest casting decision that really took me out of left field, even more than Steve Buscemi as Starscream, was John Hamm as Sentinel Prime. Because, I mean, everyone who's like, I guess anyone who's been watching the golden era of television, especially with streaming being as big as it is, probably knows John Hamm mostly from Mad Men as Don Draper. So seeing a guy that's playing like this Madison Avenue advertising executive, like this very suave, like charismatic, but deeply fucked up ladies man, all of a sudden playing like Sentinel Prime, I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot of like corruption in Sentinel Prime, even though I think it's going to be toned down quite a bit for being a kids movie. But knowing what I know just about, like, especially with the original IDW universe and how into it they got with like the establishment of what the society of Cybertron looked like, where you had like functionism, for those of you that did not read IDW. So functionism, for those of you that did not read IDW, is basically a caste system in Cybertron where your alternate mode, whether it's like a construction vehicle or it's a flying car or submarine or whatever it might be, whatever the role of your alternate mode would be, that's what dictated your role in Cybertronian society, which is what Megatron wanted to rebel against. But as we all know, with villains that come from humble beginnings, that may start out well, there's people or factions or fringes or bad places on the internet that people will frequent, and then they eventually end up losing their mind and go full postal. But I'm sure, with this being an origin story, that'll be covered in depth with our good buddy D16, aka Megatron.
Yes. Corrupt Cybertron for the kids, corrupt governments. Let's expose them to that now.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. What else was at San Diego Comic-Con? We got our first proper look, as Danny elaborated on a little bit earlier, our first proper look at Studio Series 86 Prime. Any other thoughts on that?
I want it now. I don't have really any I don't have any thoughts beyond the fanboy kind of like view. It's just I want this 86 Prime. He looks incredible. He has almost no, not even almost. He has more than that you could honestly ask for. Nobody asked for those blast effects, but we got them.
Yeah.
But and now I'm gonna pose my Optimus Prime in the truck mode, just using up like a quarter of my shelf just with the blast effects. I got to do it now.
At this point, if I'm expecting this to be good from like a commander class, and then again we're getting a new Megatron and Galvatron in 2025, it's like
Yep.
why do I have my masterpiece figures again?
Yeah, I saw the leak for the Galvatron this week, and I was kind of upset. It was like we just got these, but now I'm gonna have to get another one. I have to replace my Galvatron again.
I mean, if that's Hasbro, if they could find a way to make a buck off fans getting like a slightly new redeco or whatever, they'll do it. And I'll be sure to get it because I'll get back to Prime in a little bit, but with Galvatron, it's still a leader class figure. So I'm just thinking, okay, we've used that Kingdom mold a couple of times now. We had the original Kingdom figure. We had the slight deco change with the Legacy version where they removed like the space battle damage or whatever. And had the Gen Selects version. For this one, I'm like, really, aside from maybe some tweaking of the proportions and like a new head sculpt, and just a new deco to maybe like a more darker, bluer shade of purple to be more accurate to screen appearance. Like, I really don't see what else they can do with it.
Like an indigo, but I don't really see much more than, like you said, the proportions. Maybe change the feet up, make them a tiny bit pointier, like they appear to be.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to justify a $50 figure yet.
Me neither. It's like I don't condone this at all, but I understand. Be like, yeah, we'll just swap out the old version in the new version and just return the figure on shelves. I mean, that's technically theft, but it's like at the same time, Hasbro, you've given us the same figure for like the last 4 years. Like,
the Megatron, especially.
Yeah. Well, Megatron's going to be a new mold. It's a leader figure. And I'm 100% sure, like, even though it's very likely going to turn into a tank, I'd be okay if it has like some tank kibbly bits as long as like the general feel of a G1 Megatron is there.
Yeah, me too. I don't understand the obsession on either end of, oh, Megatron has to be a tank. Megatron can't be anything but a gun, you know. Like, as long as, like you said, the main silhouette of the figure is Megatron, I don't really mind what he turns into. If I want to gun Megatron, I kind of just get the masterpiece.
That's my thoughts exactly. I'm going to throw a hot take out there, although it'll be a hot take amongst purists, but I think the pistol is probably Megatron's weakest alt mode.
Yeah. Iconic, but not functional in any sense. The cartoon, the toy, the anything.
It's iconic, and I think if, like, with the masterpiece figure, the right call was made to turn it into a gun. Like, granted, it's Japan. Like, their whole gun laws are a little bit different there. Without getting, like, capital P politics into this thing, you can't really talk about, like, why Megatron can't be a gun without getting into, like, U.S. gun laws and politics. And that's a whole, not only can of worms, it's a whole Thanksgiving feast of worms that I don't really think it's a good place to get into. But even still, it's, like, the closest we came to getting a like gun Megatron in the States in the last like 20 years or so with the classics figure, which had to be like this neon green, orange, purple looking transparent Nerf gun. And then there was like a Legends class Megatron back in the day that, even though it was like tiny and non-firing, it still had to have an orange tip on, which is ridiculous. Like if it's a gun that's like the size of your palm of your hand, there's no reason it should have an orange tip. Like, come on, guys.
And now they have firearms that can be that small and can be mistaken for like real guns if you have a tiny little Legends class Megatron.
Yeah.
But I kind of was looking through eBay the other day, and there's like downscale masterpiece Megatrons out there who can just kind of just live on your chug shelf, even if you want to get that fix.
That just sounds fragile. Like that figure, even at its regular size, is just like, I'm afraid this is gonna break if like the one sliding bit or one tap goes.
Masterpiece engineering, but smaller. Also, no QC. How about that?
China, tremendous China. Getting back to 86 Prime, I'm very happy with the way the head sculpt turned out. I know there's some iterations of the G1 cartoon model that have that like kind of squish looking head with a long faceplate that's also like narrow.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm happy with the way it turned out. It's like an almost MP44, but still like proportionately better MP10 head sculpt, but proportionately tweaked to look less, I don't know, Teletubby. That's like the best way I can describe it. But with like an MP44 style body. And it looks great. Like like you said, I really don't know what else I could have asked for other than like maybe including like a little miniature spike or spark plug. But even that's like a stretch. But all the marks that you would expect, the gun, roller, a sturdy trailer that feels like a trailer and not like an afterthought, and just like commander class engineering that you would look for in something that costs that much. Like this I think is like the G1 Prime to end all G1 Primes for a very long time. I find it super hard to get past this.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And there's going to be releases of every Prime imaginable out there in this mold. The Dead Prime, the Shattered Glass Prime, Gen Selects maybe Ultra Magnus, who knows?
I'm all for it. Like, I know they're going to do a reissue of, or not reissue, they're going to do a redeco of Dead Prime at some point, and they're going to definitely use this. Maybe not the full trailer, but they'll definitely use the base figure as like a leader class release, and then have like all the smashed faces, the black and gray deco on it. There's definitely going to be a Nemesis Prime. Like you said, Shattered Glass will definitely be out there. But I'm all for it. The Earthrise figure had its time, and it's still fun, but the budget limitations of having like a Voyager style figure plus a pretty crappy looking trailer for a leader price point, there's only so much you can do with that, given that it's 2020 back then when it first came out. But even then, prices were stretched, and I can't even imagine what it's like now. But that thing's been reissued and re-released so many times. It's like that mold needs to be retired. It's probably broken as hell by now.
Yeah, I think the last run that they did with this Earthrise Prime mold was the 3-pack with Jazz and Teletran, and you could tell that they were just trying to get their last hurrah out of this.
Yeah, and it's kind of the deco that I wanted to begin with, although TBH, I am pro white stripe in the truck mode. I think without the white stripe, he looks a little too plain, but it's also like where does he get that white stripe in robot mode if he doesn't have the white stripe in truck mode? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like one of those cases with who is it? Bombshell, where he turns into a different color when he's in alt mode. Just sunbow animation.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Totally. There was a couple of other things in reveals. The other notable reveal I remember from Comic-Con, the Hasbro PulseCon gift set. So I'm not sure if you've seen this, but it's the Dino Force, I believe is the proper name. It's from Transformers Victory. So one of the Japanese only series for those of you guys that don't know. It's the Dino Force. So the Decepticon dinosaur combiner. So back in Legacy Evolution, so this would be 2023, there was the Legend Scale Volcanicus. So it was the 5 traditional Dinobots, Grimlock, Swoop, Snarl, Sludge, and Slug, plus Scar. And they were like, oh, guess what's going to be, released from here on. And you could just tell by the way that the combiner was oriented. It's like, okay, this is Dino King. But it's now confirmed. We have a Legend Scale Dino King with some upgraded like limb parts so that this figure actually is more posable. It's kind of like the Combiner Wars figures back in the day, but at more Legend Scale. So now we have like a add-ons for wrist, legs, and feet and whatnot that actually make the figure posable instead of it being like a glorified brick. And there's a lot of remolding with a new head, not just for the combiner, but all the robots. And there's like a new whole garrison of weapons too. So it's like it's $80 instead of $60, which is like yikes.
Oh, damn, I thought it was $60. No, I haven't even looked at the price.
No, it's $80. They add another $20 onto it. But at least there are. I'm trying to look on the bright side here because I do want this just to like give more Japanese only characters. Again, speaking of today's topic, how much stuff do you want in your collection, Paul? More on that in just a little bit, but still getting back to this character, like I'm happy they got it. I knew, unless I'm completely reading the tea leaves wrong and we get like a proper scale Dino King in the future, I don't see us getting a Dino King like that's toe to toe with like Devastator or Bruticus or whatever. But for what it is, just the fact that we're even getting it and it's not some like tacky redeco and it was actually planned like this from the beginning, that's great.
Our only hope is that this does so well that since they secured maybe the trademark, the licenses to use the name, maybe in a year or two, maybe 3, when they have to renew it, they give us deluxe versions of it. But I don't, like you said, I don't see this getting released as a big deal combiner.
Me neither. But I would love to see. The designers talked about this at one point, where we may see like a subscription service kind of thing, or something similar to like the HasLab projects, but they would do like one deluxe at a time. At that point, I'd be like, just give me a HasLab Lyokaiser, or give me like a HasLab Landcross or something like that, like the Japanese only combiners, but like in a proper Generations aesthetic.
And and like you better pimp this out if it's a combiner, because I feel like that's a slippery slope to go down. If they see a combiner do well on the HasLab market, we could be looking at like $200 Bruticuses.
Oh, I would probably see like 300 easy.
That's crazy.
But I think with Bruticus and those combiners, like we know a Bruticus is coming with the release of or the leak of Swindle for next year. But I'm talking more like if we ever see like a Generations Raiden, I think HasLab would be the avenue to do that. But if they do that, it better be a lot more forgiving and complete than the Masterpiece version. I'll just say that much for another podcast episode. But as I alluded to a little bit earlier, today's topic is going to be about not only like the collecting fundamentals, but just like what parameters and where do you get started with, and just if you're collecting, getting back into collecting, brand new to the scene, just getting into the whole Transformers universe or whatever, like where do you start? Because to be fair, if you're just coming into this hobby for the first time and you're seeing like Generations, what's Masterpiece, what's Mainline, what's Cyberverse, what's oh my goodness, what's going on here? Fair, valid. There's like 18 different lines going on all at the same time. So I think,
and you better know every single one.
You better have a whole freaking like masterclass spreadsheet of just keeping track of everything.
And we're going to be checking, yeah.
Exactly. Danny's like Santa Claus. Don't get on his naughty list. I've been there before. It's not fun. Not fun, people. Not at all. Getting into that. Danny, let's say someone approaches you. What's up? I want to like start collecting Transformers. All of it's
What's
over.
Up?
I want to like cry in a corner because it's like this is like a second job to me. I don't want to get into all this, but these figures look cool. I want some transforming robots in my life. Where do I start?
What do you like? I feel like is a good answer to that. What do you like? Do you like cartoons? Do you like movies? Do you like complex? Do you like just desk toys? I mean, it really depends on what somebody grows up in, like what they grew up with, what they like. The age definitely matters. Favorite character? Do you just want to collect 30 different sound waves? Do you want Soundwave and his minions? You have to like know what you want in this hobby, you know? I mean, how did you start collecting? Like how do you keep your collection in your words? How do you keep it neat? How do you keep it organized?
Well, organized is a heavy word. Being in New York, both of us being in New York, even though I'm lucky to live in a more spacious apartment, space is still limited, and you only have so many rooms and so much luxury with storage space before you have to start thinking about like, do I want a storage locker? And I think unless you're making like good amounts of money and you have your life together otherwise, if you're considering a storage locker and you already have like a room or a basement or like a large closet where you can dedicate storing your Transformers, this is just a personal note, but I would kind of reconsider what your priorities in your life are. Because we all love plastic robots here in this community, but at the same time, you have to be realistic and be like, hey, there's, as we've said on other podcasts before now at this point, Transformers are fun, but at best, they should be a hobby and something that brings you joy in your life rather than bringing you pain. So with me, the way that I keep it organized is I have, I guess you could say like a main Autobot bin for like all my generation stuff, since I don't have the space for shelves and whatnot, but it's all organized. It's all like fairly padded and whatnot, so they're not overly scratched and the paint's not chipped. And then I have like an organized Decepticon bin. And then I'll have other boxes and whatnot. Like one stuff is my Bayverse stuff. I have a smaller box for like the Bumblebee movie and Rise of the Beast stuff. I'll have a box that's like Quintesson, Troop Builder, other that's kind of in there.
Other.
And then I have like another bigger box that's like leftover stuff. The only things that don't really have a dedicated box would be the Titans and HasLab Unicron, but everything else has like a proper storage place.
So you don't have them out. You don't have them displayed then.
Some of them are. My Unicron's on permanent. The only one that's on permanent display is Unicron, just because he is so huge and he's always going to be a conversation piece one way or the other. It usually goes, oh, this looks really cool, or like, this is what you do. It's always like one of those two reactions. Either which way, I'm happy to go into it. But it's like, yeah, no matter who's coming over, man, woman, whoever, like Unicron always gets like, holy shit, what is this? Which is funny. Like, and I wouldn't have that any other way. Like if you're going to have a Transformer that's on permanent display, it may as well be the one that causes like a permanent conversation.
No, of course.
But as far as what I don't collect, I think that's a lot easier to pinpoint because lately I picked up the TF1 Optimus Prime figure, the Studio Series figure, just out of curiosity because I found it on the shelf. And after messing around with it, I'm just like, this figure, it's cool. I understand it's going to be the Optimus Prime for a lot of younger kids that are going to be coming into the brand for the first time. But I just fiddled around with it for a day, and I'm just like, no, man. This is not my jam. There's stuff about this figure that I'm like, this isn't bringing me joy. It's going to be another excuse for me to like blindly collect yet another subline of figures. And at this point, I'm more about completing collections I already have from universes I've already started on than being like, okay, let's start something else. Because I think one thing that's very common with Transformers, especially if you're deep in collecting, I think there's a completionist instinct that can kind of take over, and that's dangerous. Because like,
you don't know it.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you pretty fast, and nothing sneaks up on you faster than your wallet screaming at you at like 2 days before your credit card statement's due, and it's like, I've owed this much money on top of my other expenses. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you. That it's so 100% space is an issue, especially for us, like Paul said, in New York. I'm kind of like in that situation too, where I have Transformers in bins, more so the ones that have been replaced in recent times, or just the ones that don't fit any shelf that I have up right now. So I don't know if this is a good segue to going into shelving and display, but I don't know about you. It grinds my gears when I see people displaying different lines and different scales and different sizes, all just like half-assed on the shelf.
Oh no, you're one of those.
There's people. Yeah, there's people sometimes I'll see on like, I'm trying to be nice, but like I don't want to see your Power of the Primes, Optimus Prime next to your Generations Prowl and your G1 Sandstorm, right? Like, keep it concise. Like, what are you doing here?
Danny, you're shelf shaming somebody.
Good. I hope I'm self shaming that.
Oh no, this is about to be some fighting words right here. Okay, I like it. This podcast.
I
Is
don't.
interesting.
I don't even know if this is like a hot take. It's just commit. You know.
It's
Why do you have Movieverse mixed in with your Beast Wars stuff?
well, that's a hot take from my standpoint. Like, I'm all about like if I'm not gonna yuck somebody's yum, I'm not gonna take anyone's freak flag down. If you want to have,
I burned it right now.
oh, you're a flag burner. You're one of those.
Oh, whoa!
We
Shit!
just got we just went there.
No, Twitter, please.
Yes. Now we're officially canceled.
Damn, I'm done. I'm done.
Anyways, but yeah, I'm all about just saying, hey, if you want to display all of your Optimus Primes together, awesome. If you want to have your best figures that you've been really wanting to display together, even if one's from Cyberverse and one's from RID 2015 and one's from Kingdom, go ahead. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's not my collection. I have the ones from my collection all kind of gathered together. Like right now I have a couple of my Generations figures on display. I have my Dinobots on one shelf, just kind of like chilling out, all 5 of them. They look awesome together.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as my personal favorite Optimus Prime and Megatron figures, right now it's the Volvo Optimus Prime and Generation Select Super Megatron. Just because
okay, those are good figures.
They're good figures and they look good together.
Yeah,
like
cool. Alternate universe type.
They are. They basically are. They scale well together. They have like the ideal like proportions, height difference, and just the overall build of the characters that I like. Super Megatron, because he's a Titan's Return mold, and he doesn't have like as advanced articulation. There's a little bit of like there, but for his time, even though there's like lacking areas compared to modern figures, he's still pretty darn good, and he holds his own. But they look good. They look really good together. Versus something like Power of the Primes Optimus, which was retooled into Star Convoy. I understand the height difference with Star Convoy Super Mode is important, and it's accurate, but I'm like, nah, that's just not it for me. That figure sucks. So I would rather have those 2 figures just displayed together. But I'm not gonna poop on anybody. They want to have like all these different figures from different continuities displayed together. That's fine. What I will shame somebody for is someone who doesn't take care of their figures and just, especially with how expensive some of these things are. It's like, what are you doing? If you're not taking care of your figures properly and you're letting them get super dusty, you're like spilling coffee or whatever on these figures, which, accidents happen, but like take care of it. Or you're leaving them out in the sun and like you're surprised how your Siege Jetfire went from like white to like tapioca pudding yellow within the span of a year. It's like, know what you're doing. Just please know what you're doing. Like, please take care of your stuff. Like, we spend a lot of money on these regardless. So when people are like, I had no idea leaving out in the sun for that long. Like, no, you're just not informed. You need to like actually put effort into collecting a little bit, but beyond just spending money.
Yeah, that does, like you said, that does kind of like drive me a little crazy because obviously nobody likes to see anybody else kind of down financially, and when it's kind of like toy related, I can't really place any blame on anything else except for the person. But it's kind of take care of yourself, take care of your figures. Don't put your Beast Wars figures with your movie stuff. That's it.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is important is to take stock of your collection. And if there's figures that you genuinely don't enjoy, that you're not like super specific about completing a certain set with, go ahead and get rid of them. Like, one thing I've done, and largely it was actually inspiring from a conversation that I had with you. We were talking about figures that we've gotten over the last year or so and how we're just not jiving with them. One that came to mind for us was Cybertron or Legacy United Cybertron Starscream that we're both like, yeah, it's okay. it's accurate, but I already have like how many different versions of the Seeker mold? Do I really need Cybertronian Starscream that does basically the same thing?
Yeah, for me, it was more so that I have that giant Supreme Starscream from like 2004, 2005. So I kind of got my fix on that. And sure, seeing it with like articulation and just accessories that I would have liked to see back then is pretty cool. It just doesn't hit. So I'm like kind of looking to, get rid of it. Or, I mean, eventually, if it happens. If not, he's just going to be up there for a while.
Yeah. And with me, I'm looking at some of these figures that I have newer versions of too. Like the 86 Prime will be out before the end of the year. 86 Bumblebee just came out. The 86 Springer just came out, and I'm looking at all the old like War for Cybertron versions. And I'm like, yeah, they're clearly meant to be spiritual successors to those characters. I mean, if you already have those characters and you're happy with those figures, get rid of them. But for me, it's like I have a Earth mode version of those characters, and for Prime and Bumblebee, I have a Cybertron version of those characters too. Like I can't keep keeping multiple figures of the same character from the same universe when a better version comes out. Otherwise, like, I'll never give away or toss anything, and it's gonna get into hoarder territory.
Yeah. Like you mentioned before, like displaying a character that you have multiples of, that is kind of like that. I understand. I'm all about that. I'm that person that has that giant shelf full of Optimus Primes and Primals and just leader characters. I got my Megatron shelf with, villains like the Fallen and Nova Prime and Nemesises and Unicrons. So I get that. I just don't get the mixing sometimes.
It's not your shelf, bro.
I know, but I just don't get it.
Well, some people, I guess, like don't have like these expansive collections like you and I do. There might be someone who's like, you know what? I'll have 50 figures, if that.
Oh, now you're making me feel bad.
That's not. Oh,
now I feel bad. I clown somebody with their collection.
Yeah, see what you did. You shelf shamed someone. Karma's a bitch. Came right back to bite you.
Did a 180 right there. Okay,
exactly.
Never mind. I take back everything I said. I'm not trying to get canceled.
Danny's, you're not canceled. You're just in the doghouse.
But yeah, definitely shelving is a very big kind of like priority that should be in any toy collecting hobby. If you don't have the means to kind of stop yourself too, that leads into that financial situation of, oh shit, how do I pay my credit card bill, like you said before?
Yeah. This is also going to be like, if I wasn't canceled before, I'm definitely going to be canceled now. But I think it needs to be. I think it needs to be said. I know mental illness is a very common thing that we talk about in like just the general societal conversation that we have. But if you are neglecting like your responsibilities, like your job, your hygiene, your social life, to be like, oh, I just need that new battle damaged version of Ironhide or Ratchet. It's just like, dude, let's like get our stuff together. Maybe you should like pay off your credit card bill first and like have an actual budget before you start doing more robot stuff. Like if you have like 8 pay in 4 plans from like PayPal or Sizzle or Klarna, it's like, what are we doing here, guys?
Especially those of us who are like in a relationship, at any point, it doesn't really matter what you are, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, wife, husband. That's serious at that point. You can't be kind of just messing around and forgetting about the person you're with.
Right. Action figures are cool, but they're cold comfort.
Yeah. Like, sure, the argument could be made that they've been here longer and they probably will be here after we're all gone, but we got to watch out for each other.
Exactly. Well, I think we could save this topic for a future episode, but I do want to.
That's a good one, yeah.
Since you brought it up, you're in a relationship right now, are you not?
Yes.
Okay. So I imagine at some point your girlfriend has seen your collection.
Yeah.
When the idea of like, has she ever like rolled her eyes or been like, Danny, why do you spend so much money on this stuff? Like I have no reason to doubt that you do take care of her. You are a responsible boyfriend. Like, the time that I've known you, definitely come across that way. But have there ever been moments where she's like pulled you aside and be like, Danny, what are we doing here?
Never. And like ever since we were like friends too, she's never like rolled her eyes. She's never been like, what are we doing here? Like, how long are you gonna keep going? She's just always kind of just been into it too. Like she was all about it. She was like, this is cool. It's cool that you do this. And I'm pretty sure if I went too far, she would tell me.
Good. You have one of the good ones. Good keeper. And that's another thing too. Like getting back to what we were saying about keeping your life together. As long as you have your life together and you have an actual life and like your daily existence is not scouring eBay and TFW and just constantly having a through line of Transformers, and if you don't, you lose your shit. That's good. Like you should never, whether it's Transformers or you're doing other things with your life like Marvel or DC or Star Wars or Star Trek, even if it's not like nerd related, if you're collecting like sports memorabilia or concert memorabilia or history from like a certain period of time or collecting books or vinyl records or whatever, it all should be a facet of your life, not taking up like anywhere near the entirety of it. Otherwise, it'd be like you need to like put the collecting thing on hold. I know SS86 Prime just dropped. I know he's like mouth-wateringly good, but that's your last pre-order for a bit. I think we can all say like 86 Prime, whatever you're going through, it's okay to relapse for that, and that alone.
Yeah, it's okay. Put your mental health aside for this one. It's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it. SS86 Prime, that's worth it. But otherwise, just nix it.
Just stop.
Yeah. So getting back to the main point of the episode, collecting fundamentals. When you're looking to collect stuff, do you have like a specific set of parameters that you buy? Is there like anything that's off limits? Is there stuff that you're looking to particularly collect? Like, what's your focus in collecting right now?
Me personally, I'm kind of like you said. I'm on that same boat of just I'm trying to finish what I got. I don't really see myself going another 5-10 years with this consistently. But I mean, I have my shelves out. I see what's missing. I'm looking for cool Optimus Primes, those exclusive figures that come out. I definitely go after those childhood toys. I wish I had. I kind of just blew through that last year, and I got everything I wish I would have had back then.
I feel that.
If there's an Optimus that I'm missing that goes with a Megatron that I had for a long time, and I never completed that pair from that continuity, I'll get that. I'll, vice versa. I'll get the Optimus for a Megatron. When the Gamer Edition Megatron came out, I decided only to get him because I had the War for Cybertron Optimus from back then.
Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. Not overextending yourself and just really being stalwart about how much you're going to be spending and like what characters you have left.
Especially now with Legacy, we're getting characters from every continuity, and it's getting crazy. Like I can't imagine keeping up with everything now with all these sublines and exclusives on Hasbro, Pulse, and San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, all that. It's insane.
It is insane. And that's why I'm looking at something like Studio Series 86, and I'm like, how much more accurate can these characters get? Like, you can do these minor tweaks where it's like, okay, well, they're using gray paint instead of silver paint, or they're like minorly tweaking everything. But like we were talking about earlier with Studio Series 86 Galvatron that's coming out next year, like how much more accurate can you get with the engineering we have at the size class, unless you're yet again going to the drawing board and redesigning everything, or you're just tweaking what we already have. Like, similarly, I don't see myself going another 5 years. Like, I'm looking at what's coming out for the Generations Prime stuff, and we're getting into like super obscure territory with the 13 original Primes. We're seeing the last of the G1 characters with the combiners being redone again. So that makes me think, like, 5 years' time is just everything going to reset, and we're going to do G1 core cast all over again. Which, given it's Hasbro, I wouldn't put it past them. But it would be like I had spent so much time, money, energy, and effort making this collection what it is that I just don't want to go back yet again and revamp and restart everything. Like for a third. It's just at this point, if Hasbro did that, I'd be like, okay, I'll go back and get like toys from my childhood that I really want, or just focus on getting enough where I feel like, okay, I could leave it here, I could leave it up on display, and then have other things to like occupy my time. Like I'll still be a Transformers fan for a while, and I don't see myself ever like not collecting or not enjoying the franchise. But as far as being like a big time collector, I think more of those days are definitely behind me. Just not.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Not only with like the amount of characters that I have and would want, but it's also getting expensive.
Yeah, very, especially the Dino King bomb you dropped on me.
Yeah, it's like also if they're going to characters like Dino King, it's like okay, we're nearing the end of the G1 hysteria, which is great, but aside from the combiners and like the remaining mini bots, who else do we really have left to do? That's not super obscure.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna be done after the Dinobots, but just 1, 2, 3, 4 more trickled into the list of things I wanted. I originally wanted to collect all the Titans, but I'm definitely not getting an Omega Supreme now.
I got him like right before the pandemic. I remember getting him from Forbidden Planet when he was on sale for like $120.
Damn.
And now I looked on Amazon the other day and it's like $600. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, no. That's crazy. I have a Fortress Maximus on the way that you completely just shitted on the other day.
Yes, I did. Yes, indeed I did.
You're like, that sucks.
Yeah, he is, in my opinion, the weakest Titan. But I'm glad you're getting him because you enjoy him. Like this kind of.
I'm gonna leave him in the box now.
This goes back to another point that I think is healthy to attack on the collecting fundamentals. At the end of the day, it's your collection. Like what we can do is like give you guidelines on what not to do, not because we're trying to like wag and be like, don't collect KISS players, which again, remember the tagline for this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. But at the same time, it's your collection. At the end of the day, as long as you're taking care of your life and you know what you want, and more importantly, what you don't want, or what you're okay with parting in your collection, whether you're selling it, donating it, putting it in the furnace, would not recommend, but that's an option. It's really up to you. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise about like what you can't collect, how you can display, how not to. Just take care of yourself. And if you do choose to go into toy collecting, be responsible about it. And remember, you put money down to spend these money on toys. Take care of them. Because if you do decide to sell them one day, no one's wanting to take apart, I have this custom looking, Age of Extinction Optimus Prime. And by custom, it's like half the paint's melted off.
Yeah, that's one of my other kind of like nitpicks about the fandom. The whole customizing end of it is crazy. I can't willingly go out and spend my hard-earned money on a Voyager Optimus Prime and then just, which is now like $35, and then just paint the shit out of it and make a character that's just going to look caked up in paint.
Yeah. It's especially like on eBay or Facebook Marketplace where you're looking at some of these older figures and I'm like, this is custom and it looks like somebody who just learned how to do watercolors is like, okay, I'm gonna take this with Optimus Prime. Like, sure.
One of the main reasons why I couldn't get my hands on that Bumblebee movie Megatron was because of all I'm in a custom chat, so I don't know how this is going to go down when this airs, but I told them in the group chat, because everybody was making Galvatrons, Tarns, Bludgeons, Super Megatrons out of this Megatron mold. And I was like, guys, can you just stop? You're the reason why I can't get my hands on one. They had like 5 Megatrons already, customized into like 5 different characters or 5 different versions of a Megatron.
Yeah. Yeah. Collecting's fun. There's all different types and characters that you find when you're on your collecting journey. It's fun. Most of the people are good within the fandom, and I think as far as like most Transformers fans, they're not like balls to the walls collectors like we are that just buy so much of everything. We're truly like tried and tested fans that have been here for years, if not decades at this point. Just really, we are like the Transformers fan uber geeks at this point. But yeah, it's important to also realize, as we said multiple times in this podcast, learn your limits, know what you want to collect. And if you're ever not feeling it, it's okay to take a pause. There's no shame in saying, hey, I need to take care of my own life, get my own stuff sorted out. At the end of the day, it is just a hobby.
Yeah, that's something very important to keep in mind that I've learned, where you don't need to be that guy who gets the first release or the first, that spots that first figure from the next wave. You don't have to be that guy. You could wait till next year, till 2 years, 3 years from now, and then be like, hey, let me go back to this figure I wanted. Let me order it on eBay. It'd be like a couple bucks more, but I'm in that position now to afford it guilt-free.
Yeah. Or God forbid the people that like buy the stolen factory samples from China, which is not a new thing. This has been going on for a long time. Or not necessarily China, Vietnam, Indonesia, wherever they're made now. And it's like, if you're engaging in like international corporate espionage or corporate,
that's crazy,
to get like the first view on YouTube or like the first post on Instagram of this figure, it's like, dude, just rethink your life priorities. Like,
yes, especially if you're not
worth it.
Yeah, especially if you're not like making any like money off of it. Like, I get the FOMO gets to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, you're just gonna be that guy with the new bot.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's all I'll say about it. They're just robots, folks.
Yeah. Plastic little robots. That's it. Be self-aware. This goes back to what I was saying last week.
I guess before we wrap up, what don't you collect? Like, is there anything out there that's just like, nah, especially with the current wave and releases of figures, that you're just like, this isn't just my jam? Not to shame anybody else out there, but is there anything you personally that you put your boundaries on, being like, nah, this looks cool, fam, but not really interested in getting it?
No, yeah, a bunch of things that come out on a daily. I mean, I've been very vocal about my distaste for core class, like, toys that are of like Megatron, or like the like, the big names, Starscream, Megatrons, all like the core classes, the core figures in core class, basically. I'm like, I get the market. I understand that some people want to have like a little mini Optimus Prime to fiddle about with, or the kids that just see a small toy and they just want to have it for a bit. Parents are gonna think, hey, they're gonna forget about this figure in like a month or two, so might as well just get them a toy of this character. I'm not a fan of that market. I see them and I respect what they're doing, and I'm like, yo, that's pretty cool engineering for what the budget is on a figure like that. I don't collect a lot of the deluxe scale mini bots either. I'm pretty happy with my Legends mini bots, as I like the emphasis on mini.
Yes.
And I don't collect a lot of mainline stuff now. Like, I don't collect stuff that comes out of the more recent shows like Cyberverse and Earth Spark, or the shows like that. Masterpiece too, but that's more for like a budget reason. I'm not going to be spending $400 on the toy when I could get like 30 toys for that amount of money.
No, that's Masterpiece, like we were saying earlier. I don't really get with the advances in engineering at the main line, especially getting characters like SS86 Prime, or really any of the SS86 characters, or like Kingdom Beast Wars characters.
Mm-hmm.
Would spend money on Masterpiece. I can kind of see that for the movies just because they are so complex and there's only so much room you can do with studio series for like the older figures. Given like the older studio series figures didn't have like as much budget or materials and as like engineering advancements as the new ones do. So on that I get it, but for something like G1 Prime for 2019, MP44 was great, but even within that short amount of time, we've just seen what Hasbro is willing to do, even within size classes, how they may not necessarily be like as built up as they used to be with Voyagers and Leaders, but there's more engineering to make them more true to form and keep everything in the same scale.
And I do get it. I get the masterpiece hype. I understand the need and the want for it for some collectors, but it's just this is not my thing. I just couldn't see myself spending that much money and trying to justify it.
Me neither.
That, and we live in New York, so
It's expensive in these streets. Let me tell you that.
And I'm on Staten Island. It's like very rural over here compared to where you're at.
It's rural compared to Brooklyn. For one thing, other than a few parks, you guys have this thing called grass. Exactly.
You have no grass.
We have like zero grass. You guys have these things called cars. We're just like, are those the things that the police and the ambulance and the fire people drive? Things on wheels? What are these?
I hate driving in Brooklyn.
I do too. I've only driven in Brooklyn a handful of times with like zip cars and such.
Mm-hmm.
I felt nervous.
I'd rather drive in the city than in Brooklyn.
I would too. At least the roads are somewhat better. It's again, Manhattan's a grid. Brooklyn's like, there's parts of Brooklyn, especially with like the BQE and whatnot, it's all over the place.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about Brooklyn, I guess this is a good point to leave off.
I agree.
We'll have a Brooklyn episode one day.
We will indeed. It's where Rise of the Beast took place too.
Oh, that's right. First 10 minutes.
Indeed. But that's another episode for the Cybertron City Podcast, folks. Again, if you be so kind, go on YouTube, leave us a thumbs up, leave a comment as to what you collect. What do you collect? What don't you collect? What else in your life are you keeping in besides Transformers to keep you with a more rounded, more fulfilled life? And on Spotify as well, if you would be so kind, go there, click the little 3 dots at the top, give us a 5-star review if you think we're worthy of it, and leave some feedback on what we can do in the future to make a better podcast. But until then, I think that's a wrap.
Mm-hmm. See you guys next week. Follow us on our socials, Matrix Mez 23 for me and Brooklyn Bots for Paul. Cybertron City Podcast for the podcast Instagram. And I think that's about it.
That's about it. See you guys.